Hey everyone, it's Patrick from Patrick and Friends Music Company, and today we're going to learn our D minor chord. Now, in these beginner guitar videos, we've been breaking down these chords and learning techniques to get them down. Now, we're going to use those similar techniques we've been learning, but we're going to now apply them to our D minor chord. So in this lesson, we're going to learn the fingering, go over some common problems or issues you may be facing, and then we're going to learn some strumming patterns to practice on our chord. All right. Let's get right to it. Let's zoom in and start learning our D minor chord. So for our D minor chord, we're going to be using three fingers, our index, middle, and ring fingers. Now our middle finger is going to be in the second fret of our G string, our ring finger is going to be in the third fret of our B string, and our index finger is going to be on the first fret of our high E string. Now we're going to be playing four strings for this chord, so that means that our D string is going to be open, but our A string and our low E string, we're not going to be playing. Now, I will mention that it's kind of common to hit your A string when you're strumming, and this is actually not going to sound terrible because our A note with the A string actually goes with our D minor chord. So don't stress out about hitting it when you're playing your D minor chord. But our low E string is not part of our chord, so if you hit that, it's not going to sound very good. But, we want to focus in on getting those four strings, starting with your D string, going to your high E string, because the chord will sound best when you just hit those four strings. All right, once you got your fingering set up, try hitting all four strings together. Now the best way to check your chord is to hit each string individually. Starting with your D string, go into your high E string. If they all ring out and sound good, you're ready to go. But there's some common problems or issues you might be facing. And the first one is with muted strings. Right, if you're getting that sound on your high E string, that's because your ring finger is actually running into it and muting it. Now, the number one way to overcome this is to curve your fingers and use your fingertips. If you start to do this, all of your chords will be sounding better, including your D minor. So you hear as I curve my fingers, chord sounds great, but as I flatten my fingers, doesn't sound very good. So this can be a little challenging to get down at first, but if you work on it with each chord, you'll really get it down over time. Now, one just quick tip is if your thumb's a little too high on the back of the neck, try moving it a little bit backwards, and this will help you curve your fingers a little bit more. Now, the second common problem with our D minor chord is going to be with pressing these strings down hard enough. Now, this is a common problem, again, with all chords, and if you're getting this sound, right, you're just not pressing down hard enough. And the best way to sort of see which strings need to be pressed down harder is to hit the string individually and keep pressing down until you get the right pressure on the string so that the string rings out and sounds good. Again, this is not easy to get down when you're first learning chords, and you got to work on it with each chord. One tip I have is actually take a break. So, when you're doing this for a long time, really pressing down, really trying to get your chord, it can be frustrating, your fingers can start to hurt, and you can get fatigued. Now, if you just keep going, it's going to be harder because your fingers, they just don't have enough energy to press down the strings. So go take a 5-10 minute break, come back, and your fingers will be refreshed, and you'll be less frustrated. All right, so once we got our chord down, a great practice strategy to use is to play your chord, lift off your fingers, and put your fingers back down. Make sure the chord sounds good before you lift off your fingers and then after you put them back down. Now, if you can do this consistently, you get your chord down consistently. So just one thing for beginners is try putting your fingers down one at a time. So after you set up your hand, lift them off, put your fingers down individually. This will ensure that each finger is on the right string and the right note. Now, I suggest you put down your middle finger or your ring finger down first. These are what I like to call our anchor fingers. So once you get these fingers down first, it's a little easier to set up the rest of your chord. So just don't put your index finger down first. Not the end of the world, but it'll actually be harder to get your other fingers down quicker. Now, if there's something I didn't mention or something you're struggling with, comment below and I'll try to help you get through it. All right, so once we got our D minor chord down, let's zoom out and start learning our strumming patterns. Okay, so in this lesson, we're going to be learning two different strumming patterns to practice your D minor chord with. However, you can use any strumming pattern you've ever learned, a strumming pattern from a previous video we've talked about, or just something you've come up with. So it's just a great way to practice our chord with. So our first strumming pattern is going to be down, down, up, down, or 1, 2, and 3, and 4. So what we're going to do is keep our strings muted and just loop this strumming pattern by repeating it over and over again. Ready? Down, down, up, down, 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 up, down, 1, 2, and 3, and 4, 1, 2, and 3, and 4. Awesome. So now let's set up our D minor chord and try the pattern with it. So remember, we're going to put our middle finger on the 2nd fret of our G string, our ring finger on the 3rd fret of our B string, and our index finger on the 1st fret of our high E string. Ready? Let's try it. Down, down, up, down, or 1, 2, and 3, and 4. Try it again. Down, down, up, down, or 1, 2, and 3, and 4. Awesome. So now what we're going to do is give ourselves a 4-beat count off and just loop our strumming pattern over and over again. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. Awesome. Now, before we go into our second strumming pattern, I want to mention that with our D minor chord, when you go on your up strum, you want to slightly go up and away from the guitar. The reason why I say this is because if we keep just a flat hand the whole way through, what's going to happen is you're going to wind up hitting all 6 strings. Right? And like I said earlier, we don't want that low E string to sound. It's not going to sound that great. So when you go on your up strums, just up and away from the guitar, just slightly. It'll really help you get down those 4 strings. Now, what might happen is that you might only hit maybe 3 or 4 of the strings because obviously you're going away from the guitar. Now, this is actually fine and okay because whenever we go on our down strum, we're going to be hitting all 4 strings so that when we go on our up strum, you're still going to hear all 4 strings even if we only hit a couple. All right, let's get to our second strumming pattern. So our second strumming pattern is going to be down, up, down, or 1, and 2, and 3, and 4. Now, there's 2 tricky things with this strumming pattern. The first one is that our first up strum on the end of 1 gets held a little longer and gets held into beat 2. And then we have another up strum that comes after it, and it happens on the end of 2. And this can feel a little weird because there's 2 up strums in a row, but with enough practice, this will feel more comfortable and comfortable. Now, if this is a little confusing, maybe you don't have a knowledge in rhythm theory or counting, that's okay. A lot of times the best way to get these strumming patterns down is to just use your ears and eyes and try to follow along. All right, so let's mute our strings and loop our pattern. Down, up, down, down, up, down, 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, 1, and 2, and 3, and 4. Okay, so let's set up our D minor chord and try the pattern. Ready? Down, up, down, or 1, and 2, and 3, and 4. Let's try it again. Down, up, down, or 1, and 2, and 3, and 4. Great. All right, now what we're going to do is give ourselves a 4-beat count off and try looping this strumming pattern on our D minor chord. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. Awesome. Now, if you really enjoyed this video and the other videos on the Patrick & Friends Music Company channel, make sure you check out our Patreon page. On our Patreon, we have exclusive content not available on YouTube. A link will be down in the description below. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed learning our D minor chord with us. Now, in these beginner guitar chord videos, we've been breaking down these chords and learning a bunch of different strategies. It's a little overwhelming, what you can do is really focus in on one or two chords, and that will really help elevate all of your chord playing because a lot of the strategies apply to a lot of the chords. Now, remember, the most important thing is to have fun. Come up with your own strumming patterns, be creative, come up with your own riffs, see what you can do with your chords. Now, I hope to see you in the next video, but in the meantime, happy practicing.